Most men believe getting older lowers their chances in love, but the truth is almost the opposite. While many try to look younger, some men discover something nobody talks about. There's a quiet power that shows up with age, something that changes how they're seen, desired, and respected. And very few realize it early enough. 10 secret advantages older men have in dating. Male psychology isn't about luck, looks, or cheesy pickup lines. It's about understanding why 10 secret advantages older men have in dating. Male psychology reveals advantages most men ignore for years. If you're a man who wants to better understand attraction, female behavior, and male psychology in a practical, straight-to-the-point way, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Our goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers, and you can be part of building that community. Topic 1. Why older men stop chasing and become more attractive because of it. There's a quiet shift that happens to many men over time, and it doesn't show up in the mirror. It shows up in behavior. Younger men often feel the need to chase, prove themselves, or impress nonstop. While older men begin to realize something interesting, the less they try to convince someone of their worth, the more respect they receive. It's not because they've become cold, but because they've learned that forced attention rarely creates real connection. A more mature man has usually moved past the phase of looking for validation in every text reply, every successful date, or every sign of interest. He's learned often the hard way that trying too hard usually pushes people away, and that's where something powerful happens. He stops chasing approval and starts choosing where to invest his energy. That completely changes his presence. He enters conversations without anxiety, without urgency, without the feeling of, I need this to work. In real life, this shows up in small details. An older man doesn't feel the need to reply instantly just to prove interest. He doesn't change his personality to please someone, doesn't constantly talk about achievements to impress. Instead, he listens more, observes more, and speaks with intention. And oddly enough, that calm creates an effect that's hard to ignore. Because when someone seems comfortable in their own skin, they communicate something rare. They're not desperate for attention, and that opens the door to a level of attraction many men don't understand until much later. Topic 2. The calm confidence younger men usually don't have yet. There's a huge difference between real confidence and trying to look confident. Many younger men go into dates trying to fill every silence, impress with exaggerated stories, or appear more interesting than they actually feel inside. Older men, on the other hand, tend to carry a different kind of calm. Not because they know everything, but because they no longer feel the need to prove so much. They understand that presence matters more than performance. That quiet confidence comes from something most people overlook: emotional experience. A man who has gone through rejection, mistakes, breakups, and fresh starts learns that not every connection has to work out, and that realization changes his energy completely. He no longer enters a conversation thinking, how do I make her like me? Instead, he wonders, are we actually compatible? That simple shift removes pressure and changes the entire dynamic. In everyday situations, this shows up through subtle behavior. He doesn't constantly interrupt to talk about himself. He doesn't dominate conversations just to sound interesting. Often he asks better questions because he's genuinely listening. An older man can sit in silence without feeling awkward, something rare in modern dating. And then there's something fascinating about that. When someone doesn't seem desperate to impress, curiosity naturally builds. Because true confidence doesn't make noise, it changes the atmosphere. Topic 3. Emotional control, the advantage women rarely talk about. Very few men realize how much emotional control influences attraction. Most people think looks, money, or the perfect words are what matter most. But something quieter is happening behind the scenes. Older men, after years of dealing with setbacks, loss, and unexpected situations, tend to react differently under pressure. They don't panic easily, turn small problems into emotional chaos, or let temporary feelings control every decision. While younger men often react impulsively, sending emotional texts, showing jealousy quickly, or trying to fix everything immediately, mature men tend to pause before responding. They understand that not every situation requires an instant reaction. That difference may seem small, but it changes how a woman experiences interaction, because emotional stability creates safety, and safety creates comfort. In real life, this becomes obvious when things don't go as planned. A canceled date, a cold reply, a delayed message. Instead of treating everything as rejection, an older man tends to stay grounded. He doesn't rush to fix something that may not even be broken. That doesn't mean he's cold or uninterested. It means he's emotionally mature. And there's an important detail here. The more someone controls their emotions, the less controlled they become by other people's behavior. And that sets the stage for something even deeper. Topic 4. Life experience makes conversations more magnetic. There's a noticeable difference between someone who just talks and someone who actually has something worth saying. Older men often carry stories that didn't come from books or social media quotes, but from real life. They've changed directions, made mistakes, lost opportunities, and rebuilt themselves. And that changes how they communicate. It's not because they talk more, but because they speak with depth. Every experience adds layers that make conversations less predictable and much more engaging. Younger men often try to impress by talking about status, hobbies, or quick achievements. But mature men usually connect in a different way, through perspective. They know how to tell a story without sounding like they're trying to sell an image. A simple comment about a trip, a career setback, or a difficult decision can create more interest than trying to appear perfect. Because authenticity creates something rare, a sense of reality. In practice, this shows up when conversations move beyond surface-level topics. Instead of default questions like, "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" older men tend to explore topics that reveal personality. They ask about experiences, values, and meaningful moments. That changes the energy completely. The conversation stops feeling like an interview and starts feeling like discovery. And when someone makes another person feel emotionally understood, connection begins to happen on a deeper level, opening the door to a stronger understanding of attraction and behavior. Topic 5. Older men understand female psychology better over time. Many men realize attraction isn't just about what's said, it's about what's felt and noticed. Older men tend to understand this because they've lived long enough to recognize patterns. They learn that words don't always reflect feelings, that actions say more than promises, and that behavior rarely lies. This awareness doesn't come from complicated theories. It comes from years of observing relationships, mistakes, and signals they once missed. While younger men often interpret everything literally, mature men notice nuance. They can tell when interest is genuine and when it's based on convenience. They recognize when a woman is testing boundaries, seeking attention, or trying to understand his emotional stability. That doesn't mean manipulation or mind games. It simply means enough experience to avoid reacting impulsively to every emotional moment. In daily situations, this becomes clear in small things. An older man understands that a short reply doesn't automatically mean disinterest. He knows some women show attraction indirectly through curiosity, subtle questions, or emotional testing. Instead of jumping to conclusions, he watches for consistency. And that ability to read behavior creates a quiet advantage, because the more someone understands emotional dynamics, the less likely they are to get trapped in confusion, and the more they begin to realize the power of having a life outside relationships. Topic 6. The power of having a purpose beyond dating. There's something incredibly attractive about a man who doesn't make relationships the center of his life. Older men usually understand that purpose comes before approval. They don't wake up thinking only about who texted back or whether someone showed interest. There's work, goals, health, routines, and an identity built outside the constant need for companionship. And that changes the way they show up in the world. Many younger men unintentionally make dating their emotional priority. When a connection starts going well, it quickly becomes the center of their attention.
Elder men
Tend to keep balance. They enjoy connection, but they don't abandon their lives just to maintain someone's attention. They create something powerful, emotional independence, and not the cold, detached kind, but the ability to care about someone without losing direction. In practice, this becomes clear through simple habits. A man with purpose keeps training, maintaining hobbies, focusing on career goals, or investing in personal interests, even while dating someone. He doesn't disappear inside a relationship. Some find purpose through business, others through travel, reading, sports, or personal growth. Books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or Can't Hurt Me help strengthen this mindset of discipline and direction. And when a man shows that his life already has meaning, he naturally stops chasing attention, starts creating something much stronger. Topic 7. Why financial stability changes dating dynamics. Money itself is rarely the real point. What actually changes dating dynamics is what financial stability communicates without words. Older men have often moved beyond instability, impulsive decisions, and the constant pressure to prove themselves. Over time, many build something more valuable than wealth: predictability. And in emotional terms, predictability creates security. There's a difference between showing off and simply living with peace of mind. Mature men usually don't feel the need to impress through brands, flashy cars, or exaggeration. They understand that stability isn't about looking rich, it's about showing control over life. Paying bills without stress, planning trips without financial panic, maintaining structure. These things quietly communicate responsibility. Responsibility, while rarely glamorized, is deeply attractive. In real life, this appears in small but meaningful ways. A financially stable man doesn't make decisions from constant urgency. He can plan dates without stress, invest in experiences, and maintain balance between enjoyment and responsibility. Many older men slowly build wealth through assets like the S&P 500, real estate, or small businesses, not because money buys connection, but because stability reduces chaos. And when chaos fades, something stronger appears: clarity about what deserves a place in life and what no longer does. Topic 8. Older men usually know what they want and what they refuse to tolerate. One of the biggest differences between younger and older men isn't just experience, it's clarity. Over time, many men stop accepting any connection simply to avoid being alone. They learn, often through difficult relationships, that compatibility matters more than temporary chemistry. And that creates something rare: the ability to say no without guilt. Because maturity doesn't mean wanting less love, it means accepting less confusion. Older men usually understand their boundaries better. They've learned which behaviors drain energy, which dynamics create emotional exhaustion, and which warning signs often predict future problems. Younger men often ignore red flags because of attraction or loneliness. Mature men tend to notice patterns. They understand that small behaviors in the beginning often reveal bigger problems later, and that awareness changes how they choose who enters their lives. In real situations, this shows up through quiet decisions. An older man doesn't keep chasing someone who consistently shows disrespect. He doesn't tolerate endless emotional games just to keep attention. He understands that reciprocity shouldn't feel like negotiation. Some learn this after long relationships, others after repeating the same painful lessons. And when a man understands his boundaries, something interesting happens. He begins to project value without needing to announce it, because someone who knows what they won't tolerate naturally becomes harder to ignore. Topic 9. The mystery effect that comes with maturity. There's something interesting about older men that often goes unnoticed. They don't feel the need to reveal everything right away. While many younger men try to fill every silence, over-explain who they are, or impress immediately, mature men usually leave room for discovery. They understand that connection doesn't need to happen at full speed. That creates a powerful psychological effect, the feeling that there's still something left to uncover. Mystery doesn't mean being cold, distant, or playing emotional games. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Older men often learn that not everything has to be shared immediately. They speak when it makes sense, tell stories at the right time, and don't turn conversations into a personal interview. That calm creates rhythm, and rhythm creates tension. Because when someone gives away everything too quickly, curiosity fades fast. In practice, this shows up in subtle ways. A mature man doesn't feel urgency to explain every thought, justify every action, or impress with too much information. He allows pauses to exist. He asks questions, watches reactions, and lets the other person participate in discovery. That makes interactions feel less predictable and more engaging. People rarely become fascinated by what they fully understand. They stay interested in what they're still trying to figure out, and that's where age and attraction begin to intersect in a way most men never expect. Topic 10. Why aging can increase attraction instead of reducing it for years. Many men believed aging meant losing value in dating. Society often pushes the idea that youth is the peak of attraction. But reality is more complicated and, for many men, far more rewarding. Because while appearance changes with time, other qualities begin to grow. Presence, confidence, clarity, and self-control rarely show up early in life. They're built. Building takes time. Older men often carry something that can't be bought or learned quickly: identity. They've moved beyond trying to please everyone, made enough mistakes to understand who they really are, and learned not to depend so heavily on outside validation. That creates a different kind of energy, not a constant need to be noticed, but a quiet confidence that attracts attention naturally. And interestingly enough, many women sense that before he even says a word. In real life, aging well isn't just about physical appearance. It means taking care of the body, carrying yourself with confidence, maintaining interests, protecting self-worth, and continuing to evolve. Men who work out, read, stay disciplined, and invest in self-awareness naturally stand out. Books like Atomic Habits or The Rational Male help many men understand behavior patterns and personal growth. And when age stops being viewed as a limitation, it begins to turn into something much rarer, a quiet advantage that only a few men learn how to use well. Conclusion. The truth is, many men spend years believing they've lost value with age, when they may actually be entering the strongest phase of their lives. The difference isn't just age, it's how a man carries himself, thinks, and chooses to live. Well, the question becomes simple. Will you keep seeing time as the enemy, or start using it as an advantage? How many men never discover their full potential because they spend too much time competing the wrong way? Maybe real change begins when a man stops chasing approval and starts building self-respect. This video gave you a new perspective. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning about male psychology, attraction, and personal growth. We're building a strong community, and our goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers, and you can be part of it from the beginning.